Hello, and welcome to the Middlesex Chamber today. My name is John GUERIN, and it's a pleasure to be with you once again as we talk about the Middlesex County Chamber of Commerce, its many activities, its councils, so many of the things that it's involved in, events, activities. And today we're going to be talking about the Middletown Small Business Development Center. And as our guest on today's program, we have Paul Dodge, who's counselor for the program. Paul, welcome.
Thank you for inviting me, John.
Oh, it's great to have you here. And for our audience, as I usually do at the beginning of every segment, I usually like to have you tell a little bit about yourself so that the viewers get a better idea of what you do in the rest of your life when you're not counseling for the Small Business Development Center.
Certainly, John. Thanks for this opportunity. Again, I have a business background spanning 30 years representing two major oil companies in sales. And the last 10 years of my business career, I actually had my own LLC company based in Middletown. Finally was able to sell my company in 2010 and actually enter the world of retirement. I had a great opportunity offered to me in 2014 by Larry McHugh, president of the Chamber. And within, to give you a little brief background as to what the Small Business Development Center is all about, within the Middlesex County Chamber of Commerce structure, I'm exclusive to the city of Middletown in what I do in assisting businesses, whether it's young entrepreneurs that have a vision, come in to maybe start a business, or an established business that needs business guidance and financing and things of that nature, or perhaps a company that is thinking of relocating their business to Middletown. They typically would come through the Small Business Development Center.
Right, very good, very good. Well, 30 years of experience does go a long way. There's no question about that. When we're talking about small business, we were even just joking with our producer before the program about small businesses and how different they are from the very large corporate businesses that are out there. But when someone walks into your office, let's just probably take that as a starting point. When someone comes in, they have an idea, they have put together some plans about what they'd like to do. Where do you start with them? What kind of counseling or direction do you get involved with at that point?
One of the intricacies of what I do at the Chamber is that, quite honestly, John, in any given day, I don't know who is going to walk through the door, which is great. So when I get a chance to interview a client, I always ask them a leading question. How may the Chamber be of help to you? And then it'll come back to me in the form of, well, I have a vision, or I think I want to do something, or I don't have the first clue about setting up a business, but can you help me? So it's quite a gamut, range of things that becomes a starting point.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I can imagine that every case has to be unique, you know, in terms of dealing with that. Now, do you work pretty much on your own at this point in the counseling for small business development, or do you have, you know, any support, you know, from other areas of the chamber or community or state?
What I do, to answer your question up front, John, I do work pretty much independently within the chamber, but I do rely on a lot of people that I reach out to in the form of referrals, whether they be chamber members or city officials, in some cases state officials, where I detect a certain need by a certain client. Maybe they need business registration help or permitting in Middletown. I'll use those as examples. Well, what I can do to best serve those types of questions is refer them to the right people. So it streamlines their searching, and it makes their life a lot easier.
Sure. Finding out who to go to has got to be a very important piece of the puzzle.
Yes, it is.
I would imagine. And again, is there such a thing as a typical client?
I wish there was, and that's what makes it interesting, quite honestly. I have said people that will come in with a vision of an idea that they think they might like to pursue, And at the far end of the spectrum, I have people that actually come in with a viable business plan in hand. Those are lesser in numbers, but so I have to anticipate, you know, and determine their needs of how I may be of help to them.
Sure.
And that's how we start our dialogue.
Very
quite
good.
honestly, yep.
Well, again, as a resource yourself, you know, when you think about people who are out there, let's say we have a person in our audience that's listening to the program, and they say, you know, I've always wanted to try something on my own. I'm tired of working for other people. I'd like to get out there and, you know, just jump in myself and try to get something going. I've got an idea, something that I do enjoy, something I'd like to do. You know, it's good to know that you are available locally. Now, your office actually is set up at the Chamber offices on Main Street.
That is
correct?
That's correct, John. 393 Main Street in Middletown.
Okay.
Correct.
And if they were to try to reach you directly by telephone, how would they do that?
Just you dial the direct Middlesex County Chamber of Commerce number, 860-347-6924.
Right.
I'm in the general directory.
Oh, good. Okay, so
Yeah.
they can do that. And,
Absolutely.
You know, or if they get a live person, they can just either ask for Paul Dodge, since they're seeing your name up here, or they could ask for small business development, and that would get directed to you.
Yep, that's how it works, John.
Good.
Quite honestly, yep.
Good. Because, again, that's just something that I think people will see on the screen, because we will be putting up the Chamber telephone number from time to time. Do you have anything on the Chamber website for small business development that you have set up at this stage?
Yes, if a client clicks on the Chamber website page, www.middlesexchamber.com, on the opening web page, there's a title called Economic Development. And if you just scroll down under Economic Development, it'll highlight the Middletown Small Business Development Center, and others as well, depending on your needs. So,
Right.
Economic Development.
Very good, very good. And again, so they can reach you by phone. They can come walking into the door at 393 Main Street. They can email you, I'm sure.
Yes.
You know, that link must be up there on the site as well. So several ways to get in touch as far as they're starting the process. Where there is no such thing as the typical client who comes through the door, would you say that the large percentage of people who do come in really do need a lot of help as to who to go to next, whether it's someone for permitting, whether it's an accountant, whether it's a lawyer who might help them with their initial paperwork? You know, how do you make some of those judgments?
Well, generally by interviewing them initially, as I said in my earlier remarks, I always ask them a leading question: how may I be of help to you, or the Chamber be of help to you? And they'll tell you. They'll tell you, I have an idea, or I know what I want to do, but I need help in finding it. Right. Then it just simplifies my my advice to them. And generally, in most cases, I can key in on either city government or state government personnel for them to contact directly. In referring people to the state for business registrations or tax IDs, you know, the web pages today are so consumer friendly that if you just give them the web page for those entities in Hartford, for instance, it's very easy for them to work out those details, because they're very friendly to the consumer. Otherwise, I'll refer them to City Hall personnel, City of Middletown, and that's a lot easier, because that's the local people, but I can give them actual names and that sort of thing. So it really streamlines their searching process down.
In terms of the person at that point, do they get overwhelmed by the number of things they have to do?
Well, it can be, but I try to take it a step at a time. You know, that's a simple solution to a lot of problems in the world.
Sure.
So we'll take it a step at a time. It may look overwhelming to you, but what I do is, if somebody has a vision and they want to pursue it, the first thing that I present them with, we have to get UA business plan. We had, and I'll be happy to work it out with you. We'll take it a step at a, even if it's a page at a time.
Sure.
We'll do the business plan, because eventually you're going to need it for yourself personally, to judge yourself as you go along in your business, or more particularly if at some point in time you expect you have to approach a lender, bank. That's one of the first things that they always ask for. So let's be proactive, and I'll be happy to work the details out with you and forming the business plan with you.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, because I can imagine, again, with ideas, there are people who might need a location if they want to do something where they're going to be dealing with the public in a personal way, in some sort of a retail transaction, or even on a counseling basis. They may need an office to work from as opposed to working from home. And then those who do, have the ability just to work from their home or their car and, do all their work in the outside world. I just can't imagine the number of different scenarios that you have to deal with on a daily basis.
Well, it makes it very interesting on any given day, because it makes me think. I can't really go in and anticipate if I have appointments of clients that I'm seeing for the first time.
Right.
And they've kind of told me by phone or email that they have a vision or they have an idea of doing something. But until I really sit down one-on-one and I get a feeling from them, and they tell me how they think I can help them initially, then we have a starting point.
Sure.
And it's interesting because not everybody is serious as they think they are. And you can determine that pretty quickly during the dialogue, or especially when they don't respond back to you when you ask them to, because I make them do homework.
Good.
They have to. I mean, they have to meet me halfway.
Sure.
In all fairness. And
well, in all honesty, being in business for yourself is a lot of work, so you have to be willing to put it in from day one.
Right. Exactly.
It's just. Do you have many people that you just see once or twice, just a little bit of advice, as opposed to the person who you are working with on a regular basis over weeks, months? I'm, again, just curious how that works.
Well, the young entrepreneur with a startup, obviously that entails more meetings, obviously, because it's a process. But I have certain category of clients who need business guidance. And in most cases, it's how do I promote my business, how do I improve my website, things of that nature.
Right.
And what I do is, at that point, I'm in the referral business. So I'll go out to a known chamber member whom I've had, or members whom I've had good success with, that are responsive, and I'll say, please, Mr. Client, follow up with, and they're very, very good to work. Those arrangements work out very well, quite honestly. So
good.
But again, it takes them to the next stage, and perhaps all they needed is just to customize the web page, something like that. But those are 1 or 2 visits, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, because I can imagine if they do have a very specific question like that, that's a relatively easy situation, as opposed to, how do I do it? How do I start, this business that I would like to develop and have grow and hire employees and, do all these other
Well, it's a commitment.
Things.
It's a commitment, John, for anybody that has that thought in mind. That's why I always insist on a business plan. And you can tell as over a period of time the ones that are really interested, so you work very closely with them, and eventually the ones that aren't so interested, may not come back, that sort of thing. And it happens that way.
Sure.
But I tell everybody up front, I'll do everything I can to get you to a position to, form your own company, that sort of thing. But you have to meet me halfway,
right,
as an individual, and it works quite well if you have that understanding up front.
Good. And again, I think that's where, if the person is serious, that has to be a fairly easy, thing to set up between the two of you. For you, our viewers, I'm hoping that if any of you out there is interested in developing a small business, that you consider getting in touch with Paul. Paul Dodge is the counselor for the Middletown Small Business Development Center, and they are located at 393 Main Street, right in the chamber offices. So very easy to get to, and you can get there via the website, via telephone. You can walk in through the door. But in any event, we certainly appreciate, Paul, the time you've taken today to help get this information out there and across. And we'll be actually looking forward in another segment of our show to dealing with Jim Jackson, who talks more on a statewide basis about this same general topic, and going from there. But again, thank you so much for spending the time with us.
It's my pleasure, and I hope one quick message to the viewers: please seek out the resources of the Middlesex County Chamber of Commerce.
Very good. And to you, our viewers, thank you for tuning into this segment of our program, and we'll look forward to talking to you again very soon. This is John GUERIN saying thank you.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Hello, and welcome again to Middlesex Chamber Today. My name is John GUERIN, and it is a pleasure to be with you to talk about the Middlesex County Chamber of Commerce, its many activities and functions and events and people. And actually, we're kind of more people-oriented in this particular program. We're going to be talking about the small business development, especially on a statewide basis at this point. We have as our guest Jim Jackson. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you very much, John.
And again, I'd like to give you the opportunity to tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in small business development and your relationship with the Middlesex Chamber.
All right. In short, I've been doing business consulting for over 22 years after spending nearly 30 in industry. Mm-hmm. From that, I've worked with the Chamber about 20 years of that. One of the hats I wear, because I wear about 3 hats these days, is the Chamber's Side Street to Main Street Minority Business Development Program. And we just graduated our 20th year class last month. As part of that activity, I literally got drafted into the Connecticut Small Business Development Center about 3.5 years ago. I was starting to semi-retire from my practice, but basically got called on to come in and help businesses, much like Paul Dodge does in the city of Middletown, except our coverage is statewide. The Connecticut Small Business Development Center is a federal program of the Small Business Administration, also funded by money from the Department of Economic and Community Development here in Connecticut. And we have 11 advisors like myself scattered physically all around the state at major chambers of commerce and at the UConn campuses. We all are part of the UConn School of Business.
Very good.
So having said that, in Middletown, I've been there now 3.5 years. I have worked with a grand total of 385 clients, of which about 60 are still active at any given point in time. They come in and out, back and forth.
Sure.
And it just covers the industry handbook. Just about any kind of business or industry you could imagine has come through the Chamber's doors for assistance.
Very good.
The other thing about the Small Business Development Center is that because it's taxpayer funded, it's free, no charge to clients. It's also confidential. And so, as I like to tell clients, for once it's your taxpayer dollars coming back to work for you. and they appreciate that.
I imagine. You know, and I'm sitting there and saying, as we're looking at small business development, because we did do a segment with Paul, who you referenced, and we talked about Middletown and some of the things that are involved with the actual counseling and so forth. But I think probably when you mention especially side street to Main Street, it's an interesting concept, and it's one that's been going on for a while now too. So I think we can explore that a little bit more in detail.
Oh,
And you
sure.
talk about the classes that have already graduated from Side Street to Main Street. How does that work in with business development and your daily activities?
Well, it depends on whether I'm doing it during the day or in the evening,
Okay.
as much as
Okay.
anything else. And I literally wear two different hats. The Side Street program I do out of my private practice,
Okay.
and did, over 20 years ago. The local NAACP came to Larry at the chamber and said, hey, the minority business community isn't very well represented, especially on Main Street. And wouldn't the chamber like to help the community gain its fair share of business in the area? And Larry bought into that, and he did quite a bit of work behind the scenes to find some funding for it. The first funding source didn't work out, so we found another funding source, which turns out to be Aetna and their foundation. And they, by the way, have funded it for the entire 20-year history.
Wow.
And that's just off the charts in terms of how unprecedented that is.
Yes.
Because even their officials were telling us at the graduation ceremony that the next longest support they've given to any organization like that is 14 years. And more typically, it's 3 to 5
Okay.
for a not-for-profit charitable kind of thing. The program was designed specifically for minority business folks, or folks who wanted to start the program, or start a business, I should say. And it's a year-long 2-track program.
Okay.
So it's like sending them back to community college for about 9 or 12 credits. The first track, we teach them how to write a business plan and walk them through that process. And the second track is all about leading and managing and operating a business and the various skills that they'll need, from sales to marketing to finance to, we even put them through a psychometric assessment of their behavior and motivational attributes and how those help or don't help being in business.
Right, right.
We meet for 4 hours every Tuesday night for 16 weeks. So that in and of itself is a challenge. We start at like 6:30. We don't let them out till 10:30 at night. So there's a little bit of suffering going on. And then we give them 12 to 15 hours worth of homework for the following week.
Okay.
And a lot of people say, wow, that's a lot. And the answer is, yeah, it is. But so is running a small business.
Sure.
Especially if you need to be the walk and one and only that is operating the business. It's no longer a 9 to 5 kind of thing. And so the workload mirrors what they're going to have to experience as part of owning and operating and growing a small business. We have graduated 248 people over the 20 years, many of whom have made some successes. And the interesting part about it, because of the rigor that we put them through, and a couple of things that tie into testing their idea, because their idea is no better than a product or service that someone else thinks good enough about to pay money for.
Right.
And then even if that happens, then how about what it takes to actually operate the business from a cash standpoint? So we make them map the business's checking account as they're doing their forecast, because running out of cash is the single biggest reason that small businesses fail.
Sure.
And so as part of that process, for every successful opening or growth of a business that comes through that program, I estimate we have prevented between 2 and 5 failures. So the idea is we didn't use up their personal capital on an idea that had some flaws in it. Because often the passion runs high, and so I'm going to go out there and do it. And it really brings some sobriety to the business planning and process. But by the same token, I tell them, look, my job is not to poke a hole in your balloon.
Okay.
My job is to help you build a flak jacket around it so that we help reinforce the probability that you're going to succeed at what you do.
Very good. Now, in terms of if somebody is sitting out there watching the program at this point and they say, wow, that is interesting, how would I qualify, for something like Side Street to Main Street?
Yeah. Side Street to Main Street is specifically, and the grant is restricted to minority business people or minorities who want to start a business. And they can apply through the Chamber of Commerce. We held an orientation, and it's a written application, a competitive application that we take in orientation evening, where we tell them about how how difficult the program is we're literally trying to scare them off,
Okay.
quite frankly.
Sure.
Because only those who are really, really serious about starting a business and putting in the kind of work it takes are going to be successful in the program. So we don't want people dropping out because that wastes space that could have been used for someone else who really, really could have used it.
Sure.
So anyone who's interested, though, would contact Jennifer DeKine at the Chamber. She's the program coordinator on staff, and she keeps kind of the list of folks who are interested.
Good.
And because when it comes to the program, we take the top 16 applicants.
Okay.
And there are some bonus points given in the scoring for a business in Middlesex County. And those kind of things up. And then tiebreakers are also on how quickly they signed up. So if they registered back in July and somebody else registers in September, the July date the first in line gets to be the tiebreaker.
Sure, sure. Well, I mean, because again, as you said, in some ways you almost have to weed them out, do a little bit of scaring them away. I don't know if that would be the right.
Well,
but
I
think
actually
in terms
use
of what's
that term.
involved. Okay.
Yeah. During the orientation, I said, look, my job is to scare you out of here before you write your application, because.
Okay.
And we have alumni come in, and they will testify as to how difficult the program is to go through. Even at graduation, some of them, they were kidding, but they were still, beating me up about how I kind of torture them as they go through the process.
Sure.
But at the end, they do recognize why the program's structured that way, and it's relevant to their success.
Sure, sure. And I can see how well it fits with the overall small business development center and program.
Yeah, because it's another piece of the
that.
puzzle. There's so many little pieces of support that the Middlesex Chamber offers to members and businesses around the county.
And in terms of just the chamber's size itself, with over 2,000 members, there are a lot of resources out there that people can go to.
Absolutely.
So that is a huge benefit.
Right.
Overall. We're down to about a minute left in the program, believe it or not, at this point. So I'd like to give you the opportunity to, if there's some major point that perhaps we haven't touched on, something that you'd like to let our audience know before we sign off.
Well, I'd come back to the Small Business Development Center office, because that is a resource that's open to all businesses. And it doesn't matter whether somebody wants to start a business or is experienced in business and has been around for a long time and needs some assistance taking it to the next level. Because we work with as I said, with all business types. And it covers everything from helping them find financing, helping them with their marketing plans, helping them figure out whether a concept is viable or not, and just working them through even things like strategic planning.
Sure.
For a business that's been around for a while and they need to figure out what they want to be when they grow up.
Very good.
And so all of that is at no charge.
That is a very, very strong point, as there as well. So for you, our viewers, I hope this has been interesting to you and for you, and that you might take advantage of this if you do have some interest in starting a small business. If the thought has ever crossed your mind, the Small Business Development Center is certainly a place to come in and get some interesting advice. So, Jim Jackson, thank you for being with us.
My pleasure, John.
And to our viewers, please take advantage of the many opportunities that are out there. And for the Middlesex County Chamber of Commerce, the Small Business Administration, and also the Small Business Development Center and Side Street to Main Street, this is John GUERIN saying so long.